Gotti arrested outside the Ravenite and charged with ordering the 1986 assault of labor union official John O'Connor.
John O'Connor.
In the back of the police car, he remarked, 3-1, I beat this charge. O'Connor, a leader in the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America. Fantastic. Local 608, who was later convicted of racketeering himself, was believed to have ordered an attack on a Gambino associated restaurant that had snubbed the union and was subsequently shot and wounded by the Westies.
Oh, jeez. After one night in jail, Gotti was released on $100,000 bail. He had his occupation listed as a salesman for a plumbing contracting company, yes. By this time, the FBI had cultivated new informants and learned part of the reason the Ravenite bug failed was because Gotti would hold sensitive conversations upstairs.
Right.
Or they say either in the rear hallway in the building the club occupied or an apartment in its upper floors where a friendly widow of a Gambino soldier lived. By November 1989, both locations were bugged.
I bet they were.
And guess what? It's the upstairs one that's going to fuck them over.
All right. The apartment bug was particularly fruitful due to Gotti's frankness as he discussed his position as boss in meetings.
Dude, this dude, seriously, you got to hear the tapes. This dude is just like free willy-nilly in every fucking thing that the mob ever has done. Like, seriously, dude's dumb.
December 12th conversation with Lacasio, Gotti plainly acknowledged ordering the murders of Di Bernardo and Liborio Melito, the latter being one of Gravano's partners killed for insubordination.
Mm-hmm.
He also announced his intent to kill soldier Luis De Bono, who had ignored a summons to meet with Gotti to discuss his mismanagement of a drywall business that he held with Gotti and Gravano. The FBI, however, misheard the name drop and failed to warn De Bono, who was murdered on the 4th of October, 1990.
Look at the FBI dropping the ball again.
Right. In another tape meeting on January 4th, 1990, Gotti promoted Gravano to underboss, preferring he'd lead the family if Gotti was convicted in the assault case.
Well, good for him. Well, state prosecutors linked Gotti to the case with a recording of him discussing O'Connor and announcing his intention to bust him up, and the testimony of Westie's gangster James McElroy as well. However, Gotti was acquitted of all 6 assault and conspiracy charges at trial on February 9, 1990.
What the hell?
There we go. Teflon Don, baby. After the trial, there were fireworks displays by locals.
Oh, nice.
Jules J. Bonavolanta, director of the FBI's Organized Crime Division in New York, stated, with all this media coverage, he's beginning to look like a folk hero. What the public should realize is that he's the boss of the largest Cosa Nostra family, that he surrounds himself with ruthless killers, and that he's flat out a criminal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's true, guys.
It later emerged that FBI bugs had apparently caught Gotti discussing plans to fix the jury, as he had in the 86-87 racketeering case.
Mm-hmm.
To the outraged Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau and State Organized Crime Task Force Chief Ronald Goldstock, the FBI and federal prosecutors chose not to reveal this info to them because they wanted to wait and get him on bigger charges.
Nope.
Morgenthau later said that had he known about these bug conversations, he would have asked for a mistrial.
The FBI withheld it because at the time the FBI had their little thing, and then the New York had like the Gambino task squad, and they weren't revealing anything to each other. They were like rivals. They were like fucking trying to see who would get him first. Like idiots, dude. Gotti, Gravano, and Lacasio were often recorded by the bugs placed throughout the Ravenite, concealed in the main room, the first floor hallway, and the upstairs apartment, discussing incriminating events. December 11, 1990, FBI agents and NYPD detectives raided the Ravenite, arresting Gotti, Gravano, and Lacasio. Federal prosecutors charged Gotti in this new racketeering case with 5 moitas. One for Castellano, one for Bellotti, one for Di Bernardo, one for Melito, and after review of the apartment tapes, Louis Di Bono as well. Conspiracy to quit, or also for conspiracy to murder Gaetano Corky Vestola, loan sharking, illegal gambling, obstruction of justice, bribery, and tax evasion. Motherfucker's going down for one of them.
Got to. Based on tapes from FBI bugs played at pretrial hearings, the Gambino administration was denied bail. At this very same time, attorneys Cutler and Gerald Shargle were disqualified from defending Gotti and Gravano after prosecutors successfully contended they were part of the evidence and thus liable to be called as witnesses. Prosecutors argued that Cutler and Shargle not only knew about the potential criminal activity, but had worked as in-house counsel for the Gambino family. Of course,
they're lawyers.
Gotti subsequently hired Albert Krieger, a Miami attorney who had worked with Joseph Bonanno, to replace Cutler. At least he's still got a
A Mafia guy, right? Well, the tapes also created a rift between Gotti and Gravano, where the Gambino boss described his newly appointed underboss as too greedy and attempted to frame Gravano as the main force behind the murders of Di Bernardo, Milito, and De Bono. Jeez. Gotti's attempt at reconciliation failed, leaving Gravano disillusioned with the mob and doubtful on his chances of winning his case without Shargle, his former attorney.
Oh, wow.
Gravano ultimately opted to turn state's evidence, formally agreeing to testify on November 13th, 1991. And bye-bye, Gotti.
Crazy. Well, he was the highest ranking member of the New York crime family to turn informer until Joseph Massino did in 2003.
He sure did.
Gotti and Lucchesio were tried in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York before Judge I. Leo Glasser. Jury selection began January 1992 with an anonymous jury, and for the very first time in Brooklyn federal case, fully sequestered during the trial due to Gotti's reputation for jury tampering.
Look at you guys finally learned your fucking lessons.
The trial commenced with the prosecution's opening statements on February 12th. Prosecutors Andrew Maloney and John Gleason began their case by playing tapes showing Gotti discussing Gambino family business, including murders he approved, and confirming the animosity between Gotti and Castellano to establish the former's motive to murder his boss.
Mm-hmm. After calling an eyewitness of the Castellano hit who identified Carneglia as one of the men who shot Bellotti, they then brought Gravano to testify on March 2nd. Imagine that when he was walking in the room.
Right.
On the stand, Gravano confirmed Gotti's place in the structure of the Gambino family and described in detail the conspiracy to assassinate Castellano, giving a full description of the hit and its aftermath. Gravano confessed to 19 murders, implicating Gotti in 4 of them. Krieger and Lucchesio's attorney Anthony Cardinale proved unable to shake Gravano during cross-examination. Dude, he's a fucking stone-cold killer mobster. Like you're doing anything to him.
Wow. After additional testimony and tapes, the government rested its case 24th of March. 5 of Krieger and Cardinale's intended 6 witnesses were ruled irrelevant or extraneous, leaving only Gotti's tax attorney, Murray Appleman, to testify.
Well, once a year I saw him.
Right.
to get his taxes done. But
The defense also attempted unsuccessfully to have a mistrial declared based on Maloney's closing remarks. Gotti himself became increasingly hostile during the trial, and at one point, Glasser threatened to remove him from the courtroom.
because he knew.
Right. Among other outbursts, Gotti called Gravano a junkie while his attorneys sought to discuss his past steroid use, and equated the dismissal of a juror to the fixing of the 1919 World Series.
Okay.
Wow.
April 2nd, 92. After only 14 hours of deliberation, the jury found Gotti guilty on all charges of the indictment. Lucchesio was found guilty on all but 1. James Fox, assistant director in charge of the FBI's New York field office, announced at a press conference, "The Teflon Don is gone. The Don is covered with Velcro, and all the charges stuck." Look at you, motherfucker. Mic drop. Right. June 23rd, 92, Glasser sentenced both defendants to life without the possibility of parole and a $250,000 fine while you're at it.